questions I need to try and answer.
Okay. All right. So, something interesting came into my email box earlier on in the month. And it's from a counsellor in Hutton, a counsellor who I don't know. And it was on the rewilding project. And this counsellor wanted to converse with me, that was his words, but in complete confidence. And on receipt of it, I thought, this is really strange. It's obviously affecting Portishead, but he didn't want me to relay to anybody after our conversation what he wanted to say. So I had to think about this really carefully. In the respect of, if he has information that he wants to give to me that will help with the problems on rewilding and the lack of the public consultation feedback, which I'm still waiting for, why isn't he making that public to everybody? If he's got information in his possession to resolve those issues, he could prevent those issues happening again. Or has he kept the information to himself? If he gives me information on the subject, then realistically, I can do nothing with it because he will only talk to me if I give him complete confidence. Now, as a resident in Portishead who loves my town, I'm thinking, why should I be privy to some information that I cannot share and that he's not sharing with anybody else in Portishead or Portishead councillors? And also, I would like to know whether he's tried to hold his councillors to account for that information. Now, I've written back to the councillor. His name was John Leigh Morgan. And I very clearly said to him that I love my town and anything that happens to my town is important to me. And on a personal basis that does not affect Portishead, of course I would keep confidentiality with friends, but I don't know this man. And more importantly, if he has information that could be detrimental or damaging to my town, once I've agreed confidentiality, how on earth can I do anything with it? So I respectfully wrote back to him and said, no, sorry, I'm not prepared to converse with you in complete confidence. And I gave him the reasons for that. And more than anything else, how could I be hypocritical and converse with him when I have actually tried to hold councillors, particularly two councillors, Councillor Gardner and Councillor Goddard, to account for agreeing confidentiality on the Wyndham Way steering group? And not only did they agree confidentiality, they promoted it, which I am not happy with, particularly because we are not getting the information out on the Wyndham Way steering group. And it does seem from sources within North Somerset Council that this is going to go ahead, whether Portishead residents like it or not. We have not had the reassurance that commercial units will be rehoused before residential development. We have not had reassurance that residential development will take place after necessary infrastructure. And bearing in mind, this town council still has a resolution not to proceed with any development without the necessary infrastructure. And that was agreed under the last administration. You have not revoked that resolution. So more importantly, of course, and as we know, that looks like it's going ahead. And if anybody says it's not, well, it seems like the plans are very much in place. There's architects in place. There's planning officers in place. North Somerset Council fully on board. Yet Portishead residents are not finding out the facts. And importantly, you are in the process of doing a neighbourhood plan. And I'd like to know whether the volunteers that you have doing that plan are aware of what is happening in that Wyndham Way steering group. So that's the information I would like to have, please. Returning now to the subject that Councillor Gardner mentioned, and that's the Esplanade Road. And this is a really important subject. Portishead Town Council, in a statement on its website, states, despite our concerns, and that's in quote, the landowner of the Lake Rise is proceeding with the installation. Though Paul Gardner, chair of Portishead Town Council, originally suggested and supported this move despite no formal discussion at council meetings. The recent Portishead Town Council statement goes on to say that Portishead Town Council has made numerous representations to North Somerset Council to express opposition to the permanent gates without any consultation at all. So what representations? How could the council do that without it being discussed at council meetings? And more importantly, how could it do it when we've got town councillors claiming they know nothing about it? And there wasn't consultation. Now, it was only last week and at previous meetings I have said that we need to have the consultation that was promised to us by the late Grounds Ward Councillor Janet Davey, and that hasn't happened. And now we're in a situation, we've got the gates going in, which the majority of people, of comments I've seen online, are against. And in fact, Councillor Gardner has admitted that 75% of this town who engaged didn't want barriers there at all. Now, there have been some interesting councillor comments on social media, and may I remind you all that those comments cease being personal comments if they are connected to council business. So having looked at your old media policy and the new one which you're going to discuss today, which in fact is not attached to the minutes as far as I can see, you must not discuss those things personally. They are, if you're a councillor and you're discussing council business, that's open to the public. Now, Councillor Shepherdson says, this subject has been done to death with regard to those barriers. Really? It hasn't been discussed at great length at these meetings, certainly not the ones that are going in on Friday. As I said, some councillors are saying that they weren't consulted. Councillor Bull has put a comment saying, we reluctantly accepted North Somerset Council's right to close the road. However, he says it wasn't done to the agreed plan because he drew up the plan. Doesn't sound like Councillor Bull wasn't consulted.
Councillor, you've been talking for 6 minutes now.
Well, I'm going to round it up. Councillor Slatter says that the cost of it will actually work out okay in the end, the £5,000, because it costs a lot to close the road temporarily, but she doesn't know what that cost is. Councillor Cartwright said he wasn't consulted at all. So, to round up, Councillor Tonkin of North Somerset Council, an executive member for Highways and Transport, says, and I presume he's a reliable source, that Portishead Town Council was consulted and in quotations, a joint communication approach was agreed. Hence why the gates are going in on Friday. So both North Somerset Council and Portishead Town Council have not provided the public here in Portishead with the consultation that was promised. Now, Councillor Holland is responsible in North Somerset Council for community engagement and consultation. So as a Portishead Town Councillor and North Somerset District Councillor, can she please explain why have Portishead residents not been formally consulted about the gates that are going in on Friday?
Okay, thank you, Annette. Just before we answer those questions, just like to say I think we've got a couple of other guests who have joined us, Corinna and John.